As I mentioned in a recent video, Bretonnia struggles in domination in the fact that a lot of their infantry count is expendable. That leaves you relying on, in many ways, foot squires and battle pilgrims. Today I'm going to be utilizing them against red salamanders, lizardmen, raponce, and Henri leading the way. We've got peasant mobs, men-at-arms with pole arms here, foot squires in the center with some archers, one peasant hawks and one regular peasant on the side. On each side here, we've got the same peasant mob, pole arm, battle pilgrim, pox arrow, and then again, same thing over here. So the pilgrims will be better against low armor targets. Obviously, foot squires will be better against higher armor targets and against like armored infantry and so forth. Let's take a look at Red Salamander's starting army. He's got Crocky G. Oh yeah, old Krokar coming in heavy on his Carnosaur. Oracle to heal him and provide some range damage. Rev Crystal for additional healing. Tons of Saurus Spears, which definitely makes sense. And some Skinks with Jabs to protect the home objective. Let's take a look at the reserve armies as well. For my reserves, I've got 2 Questing Knights, 2 Pegasus Knights, a Damsel of Life, 2 more Foot Squires, 2 more Battle Pilgrims, and 3 Mounted Yeomen. For Lizardmen's reserves, Red Salamander coming in with 2 Cold One Spear Riders, 1 Temple Guard, 2 more Saurus Spears, 2 Pterodon Riders, 2 Feral Cold Ones, 3 Skink Cohort Javs, and 3 regular Skink Cohort. And now we are back. So, let's get things started. Henri and Raponce gonna side forward. Start to do a little scouting here. Check for chameleons, do, some reconnaissance, whatnot. But Raponce is definitely very solid for supporting those troops. And Mounted Yeomen, as you saw in reserve, are another unit that they're fast. They have good cavalry capture weight, right? They're fast light cavalry. They're not the best light cavalry, but they do fulfill that role. And light cavalry generally tends to be very good in domination if you have the micro to use them effectively, just to get on objectives, pressure, and like with Raponce actually, with her Fleur-de-Lis banner giving them 10 melee defense, 8 melee attack, they will trade quite a bit better actually. They get like Nehekara Horseman stats just about with her supporting them. Of course, she's also going to do some splash, armor piercing damage. There you go. The Pegasus Knights also are a tool here to counter the Pterodons, which have already been deployed. I'm going to be kind of keeping my Pegasus Knights back until I can bring the second unit out. But here we've just got strong force kind of capturing. One benefit of Bretonnia is the width, and certainly like Pilgrims and Foot Squires in combination with Peasant Mobs will be quite effective in a number of matchups, not to mention, of course, Fey Enchantress. And, like I said, Raponce as well with that Fleur-de-Lis banner will support not only Yeomen, but all types of units well, from polearms to Foot Squires, Battle Pilgrims, everything in between. But we're going to get things started here. Nice all-front engagement. I say all-front. This force is going to push forward here, try and seal this gap. Meanwhile, in the center, Peasant Mobs getting terrified away by the Bastildon. We're going to deploy the Foot Squires to start fighting against the Saurus, though, and then up on the high ground, Krokar runs a little disruption charge. Skinks get some nice javelin volleys, and then are going to countercharge in. We've got Henri and Raponce on station, though, to move in and engage Krokar. Of course, they're also going to juice up, specifically here, the halberds, which will help quite a bit in beating Krokar. Red Salamander very wisely going to pull away there, bring out my Damsel for healing. Not too expensive, able to build a little bit of Winds of Magic there, throw a nice Earthblood on these polearms, and Foot Squires to just sustain them on that center objective. The Pegasus Knights are able to get out in space and kind of janky on the edge of the cliff face here, although with the beautiful mountains and sky in the background, they catch those Pterodons, able to start dragging them down a little bit there. The Skink Oracle also been taking quite a bit of damage just from Archer Focus Fire from various peasant bowmen and whatnot. These ones, though, have been rounded off, now returning, hopefully get back in the fight. Another little Earthblood there just to heal up on those Pegasus Knights. Earthblood earlier might have actually came from the Skink Oracle, come to think of things. Krokar gets caught up, fighting Henri and Raponce, has to pop his Swiftness of Itzel to get away from that engagement, and this forward pressure is going to hopefully allow me to capture, although Skinks being much cheaper for capture weight, right? They're one of those units that, like, for, 300 cost, they can outcap units which are more expensive for Bretonnia. These halberds are, 400, 450? So the Skinks can just straight up outcap them at less cost, which will put Red Salamander in a pretty good position to be able to hold the objectives here. Like you can see even on this center, despite having men-at-arms, mobs, foot squires, and everything else engaged, 3 Saurus plus the monsters are enough to decisively hold this objective, but we're going to throw a little Dwellers here to try and equalize things. Get some pretty good single-target damage on Krokar. That Hand of the Gods also comes through, blasts both Henri and Rapunzel. But that Dwellers, man, that single-target damage on Dwellers is just way, way too strong. Not to mention, he's also getting shot by some Peasant Archers as well, and going to use the victorious Pegasus Knights now as a support unit for Rapunzel and Henri, of course. Rapunzel's Fleur-de-Lis banner will greatly benefit them as well, especially that melee defense buff, up to 38 melee defense with no kind of bonus versus large. Oracle wouldn't do any damage, not that he would be able to anyway, since he just got hunted down by Rapunzel and Henri. But Lizard's infantry definitely still doing a great job of just holding the objectives, and Krokar does manage to get a few pretty good hits in, I think, on Henri, maybe? Yeah, did Henri? No, he's still here. That's right. A little bit of cold-blooded there, though, and a potential Rev Crystal charge might be able to sustain Krokar. Got some nice Cold One Spear Riders responding. We're going to block their charge with the 2 heroes and then countercharge in with the Pegasus Knights. That does leave Krokar alone, though, to perhaps recover some of his HP, maybe hunt down that damsel right next to him. Would have been a pretty good charge there, just straight into her to try and maybe get a quick terror route on her, maybe do some HP damage. But regardless, overchasing a little bit here with my Battle Pilgrims, and mobs getting off of this objective might come back to haunt me, but right now I've got a 2 cap. Lizard's still in control of that center, and despite me grinding, you know, with even the quote-unquote right units, right, which is Foot Squires and Battle Pilgrims, still not quite able to get the objective, although it is now taking over in my favor ever so slowly. Krokar eventually does dive in to support his cavalry, kind of make their final Lizard stand here, and it's going to do fairly well, but without the healing to sustain them. I mean, the Rev Crystal's a decent bit of healing. Might not be enough, though. Let's see if it's enough to save Krokar as he now gets isolated and surrounded by the Pegasus Knights. Gets a few successive hits and actually terrifies away. There it is. I was going to say, I think Krokar wrecks Henri at one point in this, despite everything. Despite his severe outmatchedness, which is definitely a word I just made up right now. But anyway, we've got some Feral Cold Ones coming through. They're going to be super cost-effective, shutting down my archers anywhere where my pole arms are caught sleeping. And then this is great forward pressure from Red Salamander here. For someone who's returning from being away for the game for some time, hasn't really played much Domination at all. I mean, even before he left to go on his excursion, Red Salamander is honestly doing a great job. This is really, really smart kind of forward pressure here. And even though the Sora Spears, you wouldn't think they'd trade great against Foot Squires, they're actually going to do okay. They might end up losing out, but they'll still be able to hold for quite some time. In their center, though, the Lizards definitely have some problems. These Peasant Arrows have been able to just continue raining in after that initial rout, have contributed to dragging down various unit models here. The Feral Cold Ones, although they did get a great charge, shut down those archers momentarily. They start to get dragged down by the halberds once they get enraged and can't escape that engagement. Lizards, though, are retaking their high ground objective. A couple of clutch skate cohorts, some tattered, or just the one, I guess, tattered Sora Spears, able to push back my mobs and Battle Pilgrims and whatnot, get back on that objective. So really nice back and forth right now. You can see there that yeah, I mean, in terms of victory tickets, we're basically neck and neck, and we'll be trading back and forth for quite a bit of this battle. Spoiler alert. It's going to be close, guys. Anyway, Rev Crystal getting routed there. Sora Spears now shattering. Damsel just kind of chilling for the time being. Deciding where and when to use my Winds of Magic. I do have a decent amount. I could be casting some Earthbloods on my hero squad. That would probably be the best, actually. It would be to form up Pegasus Knights and the hero squad and just continuously Earthblood all of them. But we do have some Yeomen coming up, responding to this high ground threat. Unfortunately, we weren't able to stop the Lizards from capping that objective, but we should be able to chase off those very tattered Sora Spears. The healthy skink cohorts are actually going to perform quite a bit better. I mean, obviously, very tattered unit like that you wouldn't expect to perform very well, but due to their high model count, they're going to punch back against those Yeomen pretty hard, so thankfully we can go 2v1 here and start to equalize that fight, although there are some Javelins now and some Cold One Spear Riders coming in. Huge amount of value for the Lizards there. Very threatening, so we'll see what we can do about that. Pegasus Knights just holding off the Feral Cold Ones. They've taken an insane amount of damage. Have they actually paid for themselves? Not quite. That is unfortunate, but Also trying to get my own home objective back, just putting in some more battle pilgrims. Foot squires didn't end up actually losing there. The Saurus Spears. I mean, Skink Cohort did come in its support, so it wasn't a totally fair fight, but I was actually very impressed by the performance of those Saurus Spears in that specific engagement. Saurus Spears can be just kind of weirdly bad in other situations, but generally a decent unit. Yeoman here charging straight into Cold One Spear Rider is definitely going to be quite painful, but thankfully we have Lore of Life on my side, so I can throw down a disgusting Dwellers Below. I say disgusting, we didn't quite catch, we did catch the Feral Cold Ones and the Cold One Spear Riders both with the contact effect, at least momentarily. Feral Cold Ones able to mostly avoid the damage of that, although my own mounted Yeomen do not. They just take all the damage and then immediately get javelin to the face. That's fine. These units are fairly cheap. That one specific unit, anyway. Would have been good to save the Dwellers, though, until a proper blob formed around my characters, but this is going to be pretty bad for Henri. He's already suffering significant damage, and the Cold One Spear Riders, with their anti-large AP, big old weapon strength, can definitely get enough damage to finish him off, and he does go down here. The Damsel managing to get away, and yeah, it's just not looking great for Henri. That being said, over here, Peasant Archers used up the last of their ammunition. Pegasus Knights drop down to finally win this engagement. We've got more Battle Pilgrims and Foot Squires coming to fast cap here as well. So things are looking up. Nice little Feral Cold One, though, comes around, and without me noticing, kind of prioritizing my micro on the split push, they're able to get in and once again shut down some of my archers. So the Feral Cold Ones actually, as a tool in Domination, I think are reasonably decent. They're kind of your cheap cavalry option. While I don't have Vanguard or 90 speed like a lot of other fast cavalry, they can actually hit pretty hard. That armor-piercing damage situationally can be pretty good too. But Rapun's here just grinding it out with some Cold One Spear Riders. I'm fine to just kind of leave her fighting for the time being. She's got enough melee defense that, yeah, she's taking damage, but pop that Halo of Maidenly Wrath as well. Give that blinded debuff to the Cold One Spear Riders, just so they can really not touch Rapun's. And then we're going to come back with the rallied Yeoman for nice rear charge here. And I did want to just briefly show, I mean, 34-36 on attack defense. These mounted Yeomen is just fantastic. They're able to break Cold One Spear Riders. They're able to break the Skink Cohorts, but coming in with some heavy support, not wanting to just rely on those low-tier cavalry. A couple of questing knights moving in here. Not that I necessarily needed the AP, I just wanted something a little bit sturdier. And I've already got the Pegasus Knights fighting. They drop down for one final engagement, most likely against the Feral Cold Ones. I'm probably going to retreat them after this, just because they are too tattered to really be effective. They might be able to, for like a leadership penalty, or, yeah, you know what I mean, give a leadership penalty to a unit by rear charging them, perhaps, but they are quite low at this point. We've got Temple Guard moving in on the center, and some Saurus Spears, so a couple of really sturdy, healthy units. My tattered force that's defending here is going to struggle to deal with them, for sure, so after we win out and capture this high ground objective, I'm going to have to swing down with these questing knights and try and win out on that low ground. Here, a little bit of Earthblood hits all four of these units. Nice, efficient heal. Not that the questing knights really needed it, but I just want to keep their health topped up because we've got a really important engagement here on the center objective coming up very shortly. Victorious force up on the high ground here. Battle Pilgrims and Foot Squires also moving down for kind of not quite the final stand, but a pretty critical mid-game engagement, I would say. Here, because I'm kind of forced to retreat, I mean, I could perhaps leave these Yeomen here to just momentarily, like, delay the capture of these Saurus Spears. It's really, I mean, they'll just end up losing, and I would rather have their value to try and maybe contribute a little bit down here with an extra angle charge somewhere, so we're going to get them going. Just leave that high ground objective. The fact that I captured it will delay my opponent from getting any more tickets from it is enough for me. Questing Knights have more important things to do. Go after the Temple Guard and the Saurus Spears here in the center. They do manage to catch these Temple Guard while they're not braced, which will be quite beneficial. Another efficient Earthblood hit there, hitting multiple units. Those polearms especially will be quite thankful, I'm sure. Their low station doesn't merit healing typically, but, you know, they just happen to be at the right place at the right time. But Squires moving from the other angle, and this is the way to deal with these kind of elite anti-large, mid-tier to elite anti-large units as Bretonnia, right? Just classic hammer and anvil. Try and fix from different positions, different directions, and just keep things moving. Don't stay in combat for too long. Here, though, I don't have a proper fix on the Sword Spears. They're able to get loose, but the Temple Guard will collapse fairly quickly. Rapunzel also, I feel like a broken record saying it at this point, but she benefits all of this. Up to 50 melee defense. These men-at-arms with polearms will be quite tanky against these low attack anti-large units for Lizardmen. And another Halo of Maidenly Wrath, right? I think that's what it's called. Yes, Halo of Maidenly Wrath, blinding, significantly debuffing the melee stats of the Sword Spears and the Temple Guard, at least temporarily there. Also just kind of helping my units perform better. I really like Rapunzel as a melee support lord. Arguably, you should just be taking the Enchantress for the straight drain and the AoE damage. Probably more efficient, but I don't know. In certain situations, I think Rapunzel might be better. Probably not actually better, but at least a side grade at best. And certainly very cool, no doubt. I don't know, maybe you guys would disagree, but I feel like Rapunzel and Henri are a more potent melee tandem than two paladins, right? Plus the Enchantress. I mean, I guess if you add the Damsel in there as kind of a third single entity for this setup like what I had here, she can contribute a little bit, although she certainly won't contribute as much as the Fae. I would certainly argue Rapunzel gives you more than a regular paladin. But I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. Most of you seasoned tournament players, I'm sure, are just going to say the Enchantress is meta, but against factions where you might need to fight something really big and scary, I think Rapunzel might be a good option. Honestly, in land battles, I do like Alberic quite a bit right now as well, because his AoE damage ability is very strong. He's relatively cheap. He's a great support lord as well for anti-large. So, a lot going on there. But anyway, back to the game at hand. Feral Cold One's coming through. We did manage to re-summon Henri, speaking of the big boy himself. I'm going to start retreating quite a bit of my tattered units to try and get them off the field. I think that I actually just retreat my caster on accident there. It's not like I have any more Winds of Magic anyway. For Red Salamander here, since he is one of my patrons, if you were able to save up enough supply to re-summon your caster, it would be decent for you to try. It's one of the reasons why, and after the fact, we kind of talked about builds. The Oracle's okay, especially for healing Krokar, but I think in general, you'd want to take a different Lord, and then maybe like Mazdamundi or somebody else, and then take Caster. I forget which Lord I actually recommended him to take. Maybe Red Salamander. You can let me know in the comments down below. But it's definitely interesting. I mean, having a cheap Skink Caster, if he does get sniped, it does mean you can resummon him lots of times. War of Heavens is also very nice for, AoE damage. Great in Domination for that fact. And situationally against Bretonnia, you might actually expect some flying units. So the one time you could perhaps bring the lore attribute. But anyway, back to the battle at hand. We've still got a very close game. Only about 20 seconds separating our victory times, and that's even with me on a 3 cap, so I absolutely have to hold all of these objectives at this point. And up on the high ground here, a clutch rock drop, then rear charge by these pterodons has my foot squires and battle pilgrims thinking about routing, which is definitely not a great situation for me. The center is fairly well held by the foot squires. Rapunzel herself, got questing knights still fighting here as well, so not really worried about here. But let's watch on this high ground as we take our eyes away momentarily. Come back. It looks like the Pterodon Riders actually got pushed back by the higher tier of Bretonian infantry, and of course, not winged hussars. That's a different faction, but the actual literal winged cavalry will arrive and push away the Pterodons. Make sure they don't come back. Make sure we can hold that high ground objective. Just in time, too, the Skinks actually come in and actually manage to rout this one unit of Foot Squires. Just get a leadership break. That said, I mean, got about 30 seconds, so unless Red Salamander can manage to cap one of my objectives in that time, it will be a victory for me. A very, very narrow one at that, but considering I have like a 5,000 damage value lead, that's kind of goes to show the capture weight difference, in my opinion at least. It does show definitely of like Skinks versus men-at-arms. I mean, I was still able to win, obviously, just by overcoming, but yeah, Bretonnia can be very painful in Domination, as I have discussed. Way to get around it, though, is just to trade super efficiently, dictate the pace of the battle as much as you can with your mobility, and then fight with Foot Squires and Battle Pilgrims. It will give you the capture weight you need. There you go. hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. I know I sure enjoyed playing it. It's interesting. It's really, really interesting, honestly, the way these engagements kind of play out here. But Henri and Rapunzel both get some pretty good value back. The Foot Squires also, and the Battle Pilgrims return some decent damage value, which is nice to see. Men-at-Arms with polearms can be very cost-effective in this matchup if they're given the proper support, and they were able to do so here. They didn't really face too many like chameleon skinks or anything like that. Not that they're wildly useful in domination, but peasant archers certainly can be wildly useful if they are able to stay protected. Yeah, for my reinforcements here, questing knights didn't quite pay for themselves, but tactically nice to have. Same thing. I mean, Pegasus knights, you average them out, they're definitely cost-effective. Damsels, quite nice as well. More foot squires paying for themselves. These other, battle pilgrims suffered pretty badly, but that's just the way of things. One yeoman also pays for itself, which is nice to see. Lizardmen, Krokar, despite facing kind of overwhelming odds, does manage to get some pretty good value back, but definitely the Sora Spears were a strong point in this matchup. 5 Sora Spears is definitely the way to go. Temple Guard also did a great job. Maybe you just even take more of them. The Pterodons managed to actually get quite a few kills there by the end, which is interesting to me. I kind of, given that I screened them out early on in the battle, I didn't necessarily expect that, but it's definitely very interesting. In terms of what I would change in this build, I mean, we kind of talked about the Lord situation a little bit. Other than the actual army composition itself, I don't think I would change that much. I like most things here. Rev Crystal is a little bit tricky to use. If you can keep it alive for a long time, it definitely will benefit you. No question about that. But there's an argument for a Solar Engine in this matchup as well, especially on that map where you can apply that blinded debuff to a lot of different units, especially in the center there. But, yeah, very interesting. Caster, unfortunately, the Oracle, I think Red Salamander had said he wasn't expecting the range to be that short, or he didn't remember that the range was that short on its ranged attack, which is definitely a problem. I mean, you have to get close enough to the Bretonnian units that they can catch you quite easily. I mean, especially like a poisoned arrow, volley like what we saw there, and then some fast attack characters like Rapunzel or Henri getting into range. I mean, Pegasus Knights, even just by themselves, would be able to catch you with nothing involved, right? So it's a tricky situation, certainly. But that's all I have for you for today. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.